where in the stack are you most excited about the innovation that's happening, and where you see the most opportunity? Is it on the end user application front, maybe more than chatbots, something else other than chatbots? Is it in this AI agent thing, which is kind of, I see a little bit mid stack,
Mhm.
potentially, or is it sort of deep in the technical stack around sort of the compute and the foundational models and stuff like that? Where do you see the most opportunity in this world?
So look, a couple of things, right? I think we've seen innovation in all three of those layers you mentioned. I
Mm-hmm.
think the reality is largely what, if you think about fundamentally, what is blockchain great at? It's great at verifiability, right? We know something is on chain. We can verify that without sacrificing performance. And so the fundamental area which you've seen decentralized AI projects raise the most money and quite frankly gain the most traction has been on compute and simply just this foundational layer that is required. I think that is one area where, in terms of Web3 solving meaningful problems for AI, we have already started to see. One example of that is a project called Hyperbolic that is within the Near ecosystem. They are a GPU cloud provider. In other words, they enable anyone to essentially spin up compute on demand,
Okay.
and be able to use that to engage with a variety of different AI models. So say it's almost like anything what you'd be able to order quickly on demand. Like think of like print on demand t-shirt. Like I want to start a t-shirt company, but I don't want to hold all this inventory in my closet at home. But anytime somebody orders it, I want to be able to ship them a t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially GPU cloud, right? You're able to spin
Okay.
up what's called an instance, which enables you to print that t-shirt, uh, run inference on a model or call a model and engage that model and give a user a response to an output.
Drop shipping GPUs. That's what we're doing
Drop
here.
shipping let's do it. Let's do it. I love it. I hope you trademark that as well. So that's essentially like what the value is, and
Okay.
why that matters is, again, with a distributed system, you're able to bring that cost down
Mm-hmm.
immensely because you're pulling from kind of different hardware across a variety of different data centers. And so the challenge with that is you need great infrastructure to make that work at scale. That's the work of what it takes to be great in this space. But if and when you achieve that, you're able to A, drive that cost down, and B, deliver faster inference or faster results, where you're not just waiting for 10 seconds for this AI to respond to you. It's actually like, boom, instant, right? And the kind of the unit of measurement in the industry is called like tokens per second. In other words, how many words per second can like a AI model deliver back to you, right? That's when you see like the wow, oh my gosh, that was amazing, like magical moments delivered at scale.
I have a question just on that note.
Please. Yeah.
So Sam Altman sees something that is bringing the time of compute down considerably. Doesn't he just come in and acquire it, and then it just becomes part of the centralized stack? Like that for him as a business owner, he's
Yeah.
probably looking to solve for that directly. And doesn't that just become
Yes.
an acquisition target for him or for Anthropic or whomever else?
It's a great question, right? And maybe to respond back to the earlier point you had, this is the value of a decentralized network. Because the reality is, if I'm a GPU cloud provider, I don't own that hardware. This is print on demand. We're drop shipping,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't
Mm-hmm.
own that inventory. And so even if they did want to acquire me, they're not going to acquire my inventory, right? As well. They're not going to acquire actually those GPUs. It is a distributed network that these essentially individuals who are staking or providing this compute are being rewarded for that. And so there's a incentive mechanism for me to continue to provide my compute or provide my hardware to this specific network. And if somebody were to acquire that network, it is my choice if I want to continue to provide that or not. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's where some defensibility really comes in and differentiation, where I think it would be quite challenging for a centralized player to come in because then they would be managing this distributed network, which I'd be willing to bet I don't know if they want to do that.
I see. So it's easier
Yeah.
for them to just spin up server farms, or it's probably not a server,
Correct.
but GPU farms, whatever, and
Yes. Buy land.
buy land and be
Yeah.
building them themselves and be
Yes.
managing the oversight of them completely versus having this distributed network.
The
Mm-hmm.
war right now, particularly on compute, is it's a bit of a race to the bottom in terms of
Mm-hmm.
pricing. Well, you sell your t-shirt for, 19.99, I'm going to sell it for 17.99. And we're going
Mm-hmm.
to see who wins, right? And so that's where the competitive dynamics come in. Again, with a distributed network, you're able to have a bit more flexibility on your pricing structure because the cost for you to facilitate that network is much lower than if you owned the hardware yourself, right? Because you're thinking like maintenance costs, you're thinking, well, what if one of my servers go down, so on and so forth, right? And
Totally.
so you have a bit more flexibility there in terms of like price structure, so on and so forth.
Okay, so that's sort of deep stack. Let's talk about the AI agents because I see a lot of chat about that on Twitter. So tell me about this.
For sure. So fundamentally, just step back, TLDR, agent, they enable a language model to interact with its environment. Without an agent, pre-agent, a large language model is input, processing, output, right? I give a language model a question. That language model essentially runs computation, or it thinks about the question I gave it, and then it spits back a response to me. Agents enable me to ask a question. That language model now is going to call an agent, and that agent can take action. It can take a hyper specific action, such as creating a wallet, such as transacting on ETH, such as minting an NFT. That is a hyper specific action. Or it could be kind of a variety of agents, right? Which are what referred to as multi-agent systems, or you hear this like fancy word of orchestration. In other words, it's just a way of telling the model what it is you want it to do and how you want it to do it, right? Is really all orchestration is. Great example. You give an agent $1,000. You tell that agent, here's what I'm looking to accomplish with that $1,000, right? I want you to allocate it across these three tokens, and my risk is moderate, right? As well. Don't put it all in meme coins, right? Basically, that agent then can decide autonomously based on the inputs that you've given it, right? How to best allocate that capital that you've delegated to that, right? That's basically where we're at today, right? And kind of what I shared earlier on like benchmarks and evaluations is the only way we know that it's good is if it made us money, which is great. But the reality is, if it does work, that's not going to be a secret forever. And over time, that is actually going to degrade the quality of the agent because you're going to give it more bad data because everyone's going to try to optimize for making more money, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so you actually need benchmarks to understand, well, if an agent took this action, why did it take that action? What led it to taking that action? It's no different than like you're trying to for any parents, like you're trying to understand like why your kid made a decision. You actually gotta like sit down with your child. You gotta unpack that. Well, what led you to making that? Like that is the research behind like the term evaluation and benchmark is like you're just having like a parent teacher conference. Like
Okay.
did you
Yeah.
study for the test? What was your
Mm-hmm.
preparation for the test? Right? Did you ask questions in class? Again, arbitrary example here, but it is the way in which research is conducted around performance, right? You're giving it kind of a series of tasks. You're evaluating how well it performed those. I gave you $1,000. How well did you return that capital? Did you lose all of the money? Did you make me more money? Why did you make those decisions? Right. In the context of kind of the intersection of AI and Web3, like this is where the industry is at today. There are a number of teams like tackling this head on.
This feels unique to Web3 and crypto. This is something that my ChatGPT, my Claude absolutely cannot do. And so the ability for these agents to spin up a wallet and to transact is
Correct.
very unique to this space. What are some of the teams that are working here, and what do you think is like the next inflection point for this industry that's existing within the
Totally.
broader AI landscape?
Two teams I think that are tackling the spectrum of this space that I think are really, really compelling and impressive. The first is a team called Almanac.
Mm.
Almanac is solely focused on what's called agent simulations. So, kind of what I had shared earlier on evaluations and benchmarks. Let's say I give an agent $1,000 and I run hundreds of thousands of scenarios to better understand what they would do with that $1,000. Why that matters is Almanac is working with institutions, right? So they actually go to hedge funds, they go to PE firms, they go to, family offices and say, hey, we are able to run hundreds of thousands of simulations over your allocation strategy. How about you allocate a portion of your AUM or your assets under management to our agents? We'll take a percentage of that transaction as kind of a management fee, but you're going to get the data and insight on performance of a variety of different scenarios. And that is going to be unique and differentiated, specific to the amount of money that you allocate to us.
Hmm.
Really interesting,
Yeah.
really impactful, unique to crypto, right? As well, right? Especially when you talk about running that simulation over forecasted ETH prices, right? As well. So now
Yeah.
you're getting into like some really, really unique data on the institutional side that matters for those specific customer sets. On the other end of the spectrum, let's talk about like everyday end user. And let's say I want to do something similar to that and delegate $100 to an agent that lives on Shopify or an agent that lives on Etsy, right? And saying like, hey, like here's kind of what I'm looking for. I don't really know what I want, but here's like directionally what I want. Can you go find like 5 different options for me? Give me kind of a variety, and then based on what you know about me, go ahead and buy that item for me. There's a team called Nevermind, which is focused on the concept or idea of agent to agent payments that is tackling this head on, which that's like, well, big idea. But
Hmm.
basically, the whole premise for that is, well, if we're going to have agents transact on our behalf, they're likely going to do that with another agent, right? As well. And so that's where it gets like, whoa, you have to kind of zoom out and understand that, okay, if we keep going at this pace, the predominant end user on the internet is likely going to be an agent. And so if we are on these marketplaces and let's say Shopify has their own set of agents, we need a way for those to communicate with each other, right? And transact as well. And it sounds like very, very futuristic. I think again, the pace at which the market has been going, the reality is it's probably only 8 to 12 months away before this is achieved. Coinbase just shipped a completely open source SDK, which is a software development kit. It enables like basically anyone to build with this agent agent payment framework using Coinbase's Smart Wallet. We at Near just actually shipped a completely open source example that works with Ref Finance, which is kind of one of our dexes on Near. So it sounds like super futuristic, but actually the tech is here, right? We have to normalize the behavior. We have to embed that into the shopping experience, right? As well. My assumption is probably going to start with items that are in your existing cart and kind of be the nudge to go ahead and delegate that to an agent to get that user journey started. So that's where I think as consumers, as marketers, as operators and designers, agents are probably like one of the last blank canvases that exist in like just the design space, because that hasn't necessarily been solved just yet. Like the foundational models, the like GPT-4Os, the Quad 3.5s, like a lot of people working on that, a lot of money being spent on that space. Agents fundamentally are relatively new design space, and the implications of what that means for consumer experiences, we are at the tip of the iceberg. So
Hmm.
that's personally an area where I'm excited about, but it's like one end of the spectrum, institutions, high amounts of assets under management,
Hmm.
running simulations. The other is like, whoa, really compelling design and consumer experiences for everyday individuals. How might we impact both?
I'll have my AI agent talk to your AI agent.
We're good. We don't have to do this podcast anymore.